The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes Kevin James adding a second show June 7th and Band of Horses June 14th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. The cult classic comedy Dogma returns to movie theaters this weekend for a special 25th anniversary re-release, starring Linda Fiorentino, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Alan Rickman, Salma Hayek, George Carlin, and Chris Rock. I spoke to beloved writer-director Kevin Smith about making the film, and starring once again across Jason Mewes as the quiet half of Jay and Silent Bob. Hey, Kevin Smith, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Jason, such a damn pleasure to be here, man. I got good history with Jasons in this world, so Jay and Silent Bob,
Jason,
at it again.
Jason Mewes. This is a different Jay and Silent Bob, though.
Yes, exactly.
No, seriously, congrats on the 25th anniversary re-release of Dogma. Only you could bring a poop demon to the Cannes Film Festival.
Twice I brought him. Once back in 99 and once in 2025, man. So thank you for that.
It's a number two, so yeah.
It's a number two times. I love rarefied breathing. It ain't like having 100 million. It's weird little records like that. So thank you for noticing.
Absolutely. But potty humor aside, and it is hilarious, lowbrow and highbrow here, but it's deceptively profound commentary on religion. All these years later, you look back, you were way ahead of your time, and you sort of set the tone right from the beginning with those hilarious disclaimer title cards, one after another. And then you proceed to tackle some deep dogmas, whether Jesus is black, whether God transcends gender, what was it tricky for you to sort of thread that needle, like the right quotient of laugh out loud lines versus then some subversive stuff? You know what I mean? Was that your goal from the beginning to thread that needle?
Basically, the cosmology of Dogma is that of a, fucking teenager who's steeped in the faith, right? Yeah. So Dogma only happens because I was an altar boy who would sit there and giggle every time the priest is like, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." So right then and there, you're going into the divine from a prurient angle. As I've been watching the movie for the last month on tour, because I've been touring it like 20 cities, and then we showed it in Cannes, it occurs to me what the movie is now as I watch it as a grown-up. The kid who wrote and directed this believed in everything that's up there. That was his faith. So as I watch the movie, it plays like, if you know your Old Testament, the story of King David dancing the fool nearly naked in front of the Ark of the Covenant through the streets of the holy city on behalf of the Lord, acting the fool on behalf of the Lord. That's what that movie occurs to me as. It's my idea of Sunday service, but with anal jokes to make it more tolerable.
And Book of Mormon and everything after you sort of would follow walk on your shoulders.
Oh, I mean, they certainly didn't follow my footsteps. Those dudes were crazy original. Yeah. That's one of my favorite pieces of art ever made on this planet. But that being said, You would imagine the guy who made Dogma, when he went to see Book of Mormon, was just like, brothers, they did a far more entertaining job, but my God,
both entertained.
You know what else too was last year's Heretic. When I was watching Heretic, I leaned forward in my chair because I was like, wait a second, I feel seen. I feel this feels familiar.
Absolutely. Well, the cast is phenomenal in this, too. It was a team effort. George Carlin, Salma Hayek, Chris Rock, Alan Rickman. But I want to ask you about Affleck and Damon, because they're fresh off, their Oscar win for writing Good Will Hunting before Batman and Jason Bourne and all that. Right in that sweet spot. Did you write those Fallen Angels, Bartleby and Loki, specifically for them?
No, I started writing Dogma, went back before Clerks, and so that's 92, 93.
So you're still maxing out the credit cards and all that. You're still in that phase.
I was, and it wasn't a plan where I was like, I'm going to make Dogma first. I knew it was nothing I could ever make as a first film. Yeah. Clerks made more sense as a first movie because I worked in that convenience store. But Dogma was the thing I was writing because I was way into comics and heaven and hell and my faith and stuff. So I was like, oh, this would be a cool movie, but not going like, this is what I'm going to make first. So back then it was called God as opposed to Dogma and shit. Very ambitious title. When I wrote it, Ben and Matt weren't in my mind at all. When I rewrote it multiple times, like, after I saw Pulp Fiction in 1994, Clerks went to the Cannes Film Festival, and they had this off the Croisette pre-screening before the movie had its debut, what you would call a tastemaker screening now, where me and Scott Mosier got to watch the movie. And I was like, oh my God, it was breathtaking. I was like, you could do tonal shifts like that. Like, I got to write a new draft of Dogma. Yeah. So that's when it became kind of what people know today as the movie. Now, in 1996, I wrote half of Chasing Amy, and I told Ben, I was like, you got to come down to Jersey, pick up the script. I'm writing you a movie. I'm writing you the lead. And he was like, finally, somebody knows. So he came to pick up half of the script, and he took a train down from Boston. So I gave him the half of the script. He goes, you can drive me home. I said, no, you take a train. You took a train here. You take a train back. I ain't driving 5 hours to fucking Boston. And he goes, I don't have enough shit to read. There's only 60 pages. It's going to get me to Connecticut. What else you got? And I said, well, I got the script that I wrote years ago called Dogma. You want to read it? It's like 150 pages. He's like, well, that'll get me back to Boston. So he called me when he got to Boston that night. And I was like, what did you think of Chasing Amy? And he goes, you know what? Guy falls in love with a lesbian. Real good. He's going, but this Dogma movie, dude, that's pimp. He's going, who's playing Bartleby? Yeah. I said, oh, I don't know. I imagine a movie star. He goes, no, it's going to be me. I was like, well, that'd be nice, but there's no way I get this movie made unless a movie star is in that role. So he was lobbying for Dogma for the part of Bartleby early on. And when we got close, like after Chasing Amy, I was like, oh, it's going to be Ben and Jason Lee playing Bartleby and Loki. And then Jason Lee got a part in this French movie playing a chef where he got to learn to speak French. So he dropped out of Dogma because he wanted to do that more. And at that point, I was like, oh, fuck, we lost Lee. And Ben was like, Matt'll do it. And I was like, oh, yeah, you got chemistry with fucking Matt. And so he segued into the role pretty easily. So I never redrafted for the boys. Back in those days, I was like, this is the part, you do the fucking part. And so they wound up in those roles, but they were not who I conceived in the beginning. To be honest with you, I wrote it with nobody in mind because that was before I was even a filmmaker.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's before the whole famous Rags to Riches story of Clerks.
Yeah, before Clerks happens, before there's a future where it's like, maybe one day I'll get to make this movie.
That's awesome. Well, I know we're up against the clock and we got to run. But I do want to say we listed the cast, but the glue for the View Askew universe has always been Jay and Silent Bob, you and Jason Mewes. And you've always been the Laurel to his Hardy, the Harpo to his Groucho, the silent, showing silent. But you are that for our generation. So thank you across Mallrats and Clerks and the rest. Thank you for that.
Are you kidding me? That means the world. And you put me in great company when you reference like Laurel and Hardy and stuff. Like I always thought of Jay and Silent Bob as a Cheech and Chong ripoff. And I'm shocked that they've lasted this fucking long.
Yeah.
But there's always room in cinema for the two knuckleheaded friends. Bill and Ted, Bob and Doug McKenzie, Jay and Bob get to join that list. Harold and Kumar have since come after them and stuff. So it's been a pleasure and an honor, but very self-serving as well.
All right, well, we got to go. Last Crusade in Dogma style, no ticket, or maybe the kids on the escalator again. I don't know how you want to wrap it, but we got to get out of here.
That's tremendous, man. Excellent pulp. Many thanks.
See ya.
Bye, Jason.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.